How's it going, guys and goddesses? This is the Akara message. Don't let these people gaslight you, man. You know, it's clear what they're trying to do is they're trying to strike up World War III on the African continent. Ibrahim Traore, and there's a little section of countries over there in West Africa that are aligned with China. Don't let these people fool you, man. China's controlled and ran by the World Economic Forum, headed by Klaus Schwab and George Soros. This is just their little plot to drag America into World War III. And they're going to use the whole propaganda that the West, EU, America is trying to steal Africa's resources, when in reality the West has control of Africa's resources. So this is all gaslighting. See, when you research who owns China, who owns the corporations of China, you're going to see that it's the West. It's the World Economic Forum, primarily. Okay, so they're just using a bunch of propaganda because what they want to do is they want to stir up World War III, and they want to turn black people against Trump, you know, using the whole colonialist, you know, it's more colonialists coming in here trying to steal our resources when the colonialists are already stealing your resources, man. So stop with the gaslighting, man. What should have happened was y'all brothers and sisters in Africa should have never ever let China into Africa. Y'all should have had enough sense to know that China is being run by the West. It's being controlled by the West. So when China comes in and gets your resources for their quote unquote corporations, okay, those corporations in China are owned by the West. So you're being gaslit, and they're using Ibrahim Traore as the linchpin to stir up some bullshit. And I'm telling you guys and goddesses, you brothers and sisters, on not only on the continent but here in the United States, don't fall for the okie doke. This is Klaus Schwab, George Soros, using political instability to stir up. They want World War III because the goal of the World Economic Forum is population reduction. And if they can get the whole world caught up in the quagmire of war, okay, then they can achieve their means of population reduction. And the fastest way to that means is through war, through viruses, through famines, which is everything the World Economic Forum wants to create. So this whole notion that Africa owns its resources is a bunch of bullshit. Because first of all, the World Economic Forum and the United Nations, damn near every country in Africa, all the leaders of those countries, Botswana, you name a country, Burkina Faso, okay, those leaders are installed by the United Nations. So, you know, they're not there to help Africa or the African people. And none of those resources that are being dug out of the ground of Africa is ever going to reach the African people. It's never going to reach the African people. So that's a bunch of bullshit. The only way Africa is going to come up out of this is you have to industrialize, and you have to do it on your own. You can't have Russia, China come in here and teach you how to industrialize, how to take your raw materials and make products. You got to learn how to do that on your own. Because if you allow these countries in here, they're going to base their military in your territories, and you no longer are sovereign. You can talk all that sovereign talk all you want, but you're still dependent on China, you're dependent on Russia, or you're dependent on America or the EU. So Africa is not sovereign. Okay, they run Africa. So let's not get that twisted. See, as it tells you right here, many Chinese corporations operate in Africa, with some of the most prominent including Huawei, Transient Holdings, and Sunshine Group. And when you go to the World Economic Forum website and their partners, this is their partners list. Let's get up in here. Our partners, World Economic Forum partners, are leading global companies developing solutions to the world's greatest challenges. They are the driving force behind the forum's programs. Our partners engage in centers to shape the future, accessing networks and experts to ensure strategic decision-making on the most pressing issues. And when you go down to their partners list, it's in alphabetical order. We go to H. And who do you see right there? Huawei Technologies, right there. They're part of the World Economic Forum, man. You see, it's the World Economic Forum that's dictating policy in Africa. And the World Economic Forum is run by the West. Let's see right here, you got the World Economic Forum members list. Let's pull that up. There you go. Looks like she comes from the West. There you go. Armel de Juku. There you go. You got Ine Delve, President Operations. You got Hakan Leknes. Okay, Mafdal Echper. Okay, Yusufina Saeed. Marat Savina. Jacqueline Simmons. Okay, see, these are the people right here. Stephen Switzer. These are the people that are members of the World Economic Forum and their member corporations tied to the World Economic Forum, or these Chinese corporations. But as you can see, there's a lot of non-Chinese that's involved in this. Okay, this is the West. The West runs the World Economic Forum. They hold a meeting in Davos, Switzerland. That's the West. So these are the people that's taking control of Africa's resources right here. These are Africa's managers of resources. They control Africa's resources. These people here. These are the member lists right there. And you know, notice they don't tell you what country these people are actually from. You know, they just tell you they're members. And this right here is like the global. These are the members that are basically set up the global government tied in with the United Nations. These are the people that run Africa. It's the West. And Ibrahim Traore is just a puppet. He's actually a puppet for the Chinese corporations. And, you know, it's the Chinese corporations that are basically run and controlled by the West. They're run and controlled by the World Economic Forum. So the West controls Africa resources. They just got their puppets to front off. Like you think, they making you think it's black people that's in control of this shit, just like Obama. So you would think a black man runs America, but it's the people behind Obama. Obama's just a face. That's what Ibrahim Traore is. He's nothing but a face for Burkina Faso. Okay, he is a puppet he's basically, the whole African Union is tied in with the World Economic Forum. Run and controlled by the World Economic Forum. Okay, hold on. Okay, it tells you right here, the African Union has a significant relationship with the World Economic Forum, WEF. So the African Union is tied into this. So the people, these government leaders that make up the African Union are tied, they're loyal to the World Economic Forum. They are not loyal to the African people. And one of those leaders is Ibrahim Traore. Now you got to question, how did Ibrahim Traore, who financed his coup over the other African brother that ran a coup in Burkina Faso? Who's the power behind that? It's the questions you need to be asking yourself before you up like cattle start following the motherfucker. Okay, I get it. The dude's talking about he wants to, you know, make Africa's resources Africa. He wants to manufacture in Africa. They're selling you all that bullshit. China runs Burkina Faso. Okay, and Russia is in there cutting deals. And to me, this is all fucking fraud because, you know, like I said, Vladimir Putin was trained by the World Economic Forum, man. See, it tells you the African Union has a significant relationship with the World Economic Forum, primarily through its participation in WEF events and initiatives related to Africa's development and economic integration. So Africa's development and economic integration is tied in with the World Economic Forum. So the World Economic Forum is the West, and the West runs Africa. So y'all brothers out there, see, there's a reason why your videos are getting pushed and you guys are not getting shadow banned like niggas like me. You're not being shadow banned by Google. Hold on here. The reason why you're not being banned by Google and shadow banned because YouTube is running control by Google. There you go, Google. Why? Because Google is one of the members of the World Economic Forum. So your videos are being promoted by Google. All y'all brothers and sisters out there talking all this shit, hyping up Ibrahim Traore, your video is allowed to play because your information is being controlled by Google. Google is not going to let your shit play unless you're pushing narratives that they want. Here you go right here. Hands off protest. 38,000 views. Here you go right here. News about Ibrahim Traore, Burkina Faso. Okay, the new African channel, 24,000 views. Right here in the United States. Okay, African Diaspora channel, 12K views within 21 hours. Here you go, AFRICOM created a hero. Attack on Ibrahim Traore, 37,000 views. So they're talking about AFRICOM. Trying to steal Africa's resources when China controls Africa's resources and China is running control by the World Economic Forum, which is the West. And then you got the African Union, who is tied in with the World Economic Forum, which means the African Union is controlled by the West. So all this bullshit that they're coming up with talking about West, Trump is trying to steal Burkina Faso's resources. No, this has everything to do with China. The West, Trump, is trying to shut down China. And Ibrahim Traore and the African Union is in bed with China, who is controlled by Klaus Schwab, George Soros, who is an enemy to Donald Trump, because they're the ones who weaponized the Justice Department here in the United States, because Letitia James, Fannie Willis, and that other brother, man, is they're all tied in with George Soros, man. Okay, the California fires, that's George Soros and the World Economic Forum behind that shit, because they got the boy right here, Gavin Newsom. Let's see, where's Gavin Newsom? Right there. This dude right here. Here are the biggest donors backing California's governor in recall election. Governor Gavin Newsom faces a recall election in September, has gotten donations from a panoply of the country's richest people. Let me see if we can find who these richest people are. Reed Hastings. These are all tech companies, by the way. Let me see. Let me see if we can find an article. There you go. Soros, okay. New York hedge fund tycoons George Soros and Jim Simons are the only billionaire Newsom donors who live outside of California. So there's George Soros tied in with Gavin Newsom. And they're the ones burnt out the Palisades, and they're going to turn the Palisades into what? A smart city. Same way with Mark Benioff, who's a member of the World Economic Forum. He's the one behind the fires over there in Hawaii. And Mark Benioff is the one practically runs Hawaii. Let's get into that. Here's the guy right here, Mark Benioff. So those Hawaiis and those fires in Hawaii, he's the one buying up all the damn land. And of course, he's what? Member of the World Economic Forum. Okay? These are all the people that Traore is tied to via the African Union. Because he's a member of the African Union. Burkina Faso, damn near every country in Africa is controlled by a member of the African Union, and the African Union is tied in with the World Economic Forum, and that tells you that the West runs Africa. Because all those people were installed by the World Economic Forum. Especially that motherfucker who runs Botswana. Boku, or whatever his name is. Okay, Botswana's president is Duma Boko. Okay, hold on. Here's your boy Boko, leader of Botswana. I'm just showing you people the game, man. They're just using Ibrahim Traore as a linchpin to start World War III. Coming up with this propaganda saying that Trump, AFRICOM, okay, which has a presence there in Africa, is trying to steal Burkina Faso's resources when the West already controls Burkina Faso's resources via the World Economic Forum, as you're going to see right here.
Botswana President Duma Boko says that diversification of the country's economy and wildlife conservation are some of the priorities of his presidency. And speaking to SABC News on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Boko says his first participation at the forum was a success. SABC's economics editor Tsepo Mongwai spoke to Boko a short while ago.
We have a number of African countries that are participating in engagement, bilateral negotiations and talks, and a number of cooperation that countries are seeking to make in various sectors.
Here's right here. Let's get that up in there. Boko highlights. Hold on. They always got to do some bullshit. Botswana's priorities at the WEF, World Economic Forum. So, people, don't get this shit twisted, man. And don't fall for this Ibrahim Traore hoax. Because that's what this bullshit is, man. The World Economic Forum, George Soros, is at war with Donald Trump. And they're going to use the African Union to turn against Trump. When Trump cut U.S. aid out of Africa, and USA is nothing but, they was going in with U.S. aid, spying on Africa, trying to destabilize African communities. Trump cut that shit. Trump is also helping Africa, whether you want to look at it as not. Now, maybe he might have some ulterior motives trying to get access to Africa's resources. But you know what? Here in America, we don't need Africa's resources. We got enough resources here in the United States. So I don't think that's the motive. The motive is to stop China. And when you stop China, you stop the World Economic Forum from advancing. And see, World Economic Forum runs NATO, and Trump is doing everything to shut down NATO. Trump doesn't want NATO and the World Economic Forum running America. Which is why they have to turn the whole world against Trump in America. When what needs to happen is you need to have a populist uprising, a populist movement, another MAGA, Make Africa Great Again movement, where the people boost these fucking World Economic Forum puppets out your country, because Boko is not working for the Botswana people or anybody from Africa. He works for the World Economic Forum. Don't get it twisted. He works for the West. He's a puppet for the West. And all those resources are going to go to the West. And any development that's happening in Africa, any corporations that are being built in Africa is going to be owned by the fucking West, members of the World Economic Forum. So don't get this shit twisted. Ibrahim Traore is nothing but a puppet. He's nothing but a linchpin. And it's all bullshit. So don't let these motherfuckers, George Soros, herd you in to supporting Ibrahim Traore. Because all he's trying to do is to destabilize Africa, and he's going to use the African people to destabilize America, which is only going to benefit the World Economic Forum and the global government. So you got to build a utopian Africa, man, and get off the hype and do your damn research. That's it. This is Akara. God bless all you guys and goddesses. Peace.